been able to listen to this morning, and for part of the time I was here yesterday. And I have to tender my apologies for having been out for the rest of the day yesterday. I just had a lot of meetings. This is the problem when meetings are held where you are, so you get called upon. But I think first of all, I will just thank again the Tana Forum Secretariat, IPSS, and the GIZ, the AU, for the opportunity again of having this collaboration, and we are really very proud as TrustAfrica to have been part of this. And I want to thank the government of Senegal for honoring us with their presence here yesterday. We had the director of youth who was with us, Mr. Jallo. We've had people who joined us online, and the message from the ECOWAS Commission as well. But also a special thanks to His Excellency Lansina Zerbo for the time and for the wisdom he shared with us. We had the opportunity of listening to him, and he was speaking to the media yesterday, but also I was sitting with him all the last hour and a half, basically, and I think it's a privilege to have somebody like him being present at a forum like this one. They have a lot to share and a lot, to contribute to the issues. And also thanks to all the friends and to people who have been on the panels who contributed their time. It was just fascinating, and to take the full measure of the wealth of experiences and ideas, I think that are together in a forum like this one. Everybody has a unique trajectory, unique experiences, great wisdom and knowledge to share, which I think is a treasure, and and I'm convinced that this is something that we must find a way of nurturing and continuing. These conversations must continue. We've been talking about plans, at the national level. Then there will be the Tana Forum, but I think there are all the spaces in which this conversation has to be continued, and there has to be really close connections with the different sectors in our society, the research community in particular, the universities, the educational institutions, the think tanks, the social movements. There's a lot happening, and civil society more generally, and of course the governments. A lot of issues have been raised. I've just been listening to the panel this morning. Many issues having to do with, how to go about having good plans. And the plans are a process, and I'm in complete agreement with that idea. I think the process that people go into, the conversations and the dynamics, are actually probably even more important than what you come up with as a document. Because you are creating, a community. You are building a community. You actually sharing a lot in the process, strengthening each other, strengthening, the whole communities in which we are all embedded in the conversations like these ones. And I think that's probably even more important than what you show in the end as the document. I also have heard, how, some people have been reminding us that we've got things that we can be proud of on this continent, including in legal documents. The African Youth Charter, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We've got great protocols, documents, institutions that are, our own making, and that actually are ahead in some respects of some of the international instruments that we've been working with. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights, it was far ahead, in a number of respects. One, in the importance it gives to both the economic and social rights, and to the civil and political rights, to the notion of duties, to the notion of group rights, in a number of respects, right? And then there are other documents also which we should be, we should never forget that we do have here. I've heard the importance of youth ministries being given much greater weight in governments. I thought that was a very fundamental point that was made. If anything, really, we should probably be in the order of protocols, giving a lot more weight to youth ministries who concern so many people, a lot more people, the majorities actually. I was saying yesterday that we have demographic majorities that ought to have much greater political weight. And one way of doing it is not just to have a ministry that is under-resourced, that doesn't, certainly I don't know of any country where the Ministry of Youth is a state ministry, as has been argued earlier on today. These are things that should be, issues that we put on the agenda and advocate for them to be better resourced, for them to be given much more importance. And it's one way of acknowledging the value and the critical strategic importance of youth in our communities and in our societies. The importance of the financial issues also I've noted, that's really where often you have a challenge. You may have a beautiful document, a good plan, great ideas, but you really need to have the resources. And the resources are available. I mean, the governments make allocations of the resources and they decide to put so much into defense or so much into other things, and then maybe just so little into issues that are so important. So that those resource issues also should be issues that should be, I think, addressed in important ways. And beyond the governments, I think it's a question of sensitizing every important actor in our societies, including the private sector, including communities, for them to know that, look, investing in youth is probably the most important investment that anybody can make anywhere, right? And so there's a need to go even beyond what the governments are contributing to make sure that there are much more important investments into issues related to the youth, because these are investments into our futures and into futures of our societies. And of course, talking about investments, a very critical issue, it may seem not to be related to issues of peace and security, but actually they are, is to make sure that we get the education, we are prepared, for a world that is changing. We are prepared to confront challenges that will become increasingly, complex as you go along. It means investing in education at every level. It means investing in the acquisition of skills, in artificial intelligence, in everything. We have this unique situation in our continent in which we have basically, if you have had now, people are talking about the 5th industrial revolution. The first one we cannot go back to, right? It's steam engines and so on. That's gone. But from the 2nd industrial revolution, having to do with electricity to machine learning and so on, where we are now, we have all of them together happening at the same time, and we have to be able to handle all of them. 600 million Africans don't have access to energy, to electricity on this continent. So, and these are issues that we are said to have been resolved by the 2nd industrial revolution. And then you have, of course, the artificial intelligence, So we have all the issues to grapple with, and we should be able to grapple with all those issues. And I think that's what we need to do. If anything, I think which maybe should have been given a lot more space in the conversations here, I would say 2 things. One is, you see, being young doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel responsible for the big issues that this world is confronted with. I'm not even talking about the continent. I'm talking about this world. And what we are seeing happening in the world today, when you have young people from Sweden and elsewhere being the front runners when it comes to the fight about climate change and global warming, it's young people who are leading that struggle and pushing everybody, including the United Nations. When in South Africa, Steve Biko and them were saying, we're getting up to fight, they were not saying we are young people or we are looking at these issues as young people. Biko said, black man, you are on your own. The problems of this world are your problems. And I think being a young person, it means taking full responsibility of what this world is happening, is about, and where the world is going to. It's not only about, having a job, it's important to have a job, to have skills, to have a home, to have a decent life. But the people who are mobilized today on most of the big issues, are also young people. Young people fought for the independence of this continent, right? Students' movements. We are never about only scholarships and stipends and, fees and so on. Those things are important. But very quickly, including the most recent experiences from South Africa, when they got up to fight for fees to fall, they didn't stop there, you know. It was about the continuation of the decolonization process, of the transformation process that was begun in the struggle against apartheid. So being young doesn't mean that we should minimize the importance we give to the big issues of the day. On the contrary, I think it means putting the biggest issues of the day up front on the agenda and feeling responsible for the search for answers to the big questions that humanity is asking itself today. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think it would have been probably important to spend more time connecting the dots. In other words, seeing what are the big processes that are unfolding both globally and within the region that are impacting on the peace and security issues. Peace and security becomes fragile at the very best if one do not have a much better environment, a much better economic situation, a much better development process unfolding on this continent. So I think it's important to connect the discussions about peace and peace plans, to the context in which we are. And that context is evolving. So therefore we should look at the context as it is evolving and as it is transforming. And one of the most critical things that we were saying yesterday is the fact that this continent is one where you find the most strategic of resources today, the most sought after resources having to do with green energy and so on, are found on this continent. Arable land for agriculture, the largest concentration of it is on this continent. People, human resources, the most important, the largest number of people on the planet Earth are on this continent or will be on this continent within a few decades. And so I think we should contextualize the problems of peace and security, in a way that takes into account what is over-determining the fighting that you see occurring here and there, right? People don't just get up to fight. They fight because of a lot of issues having to do with their livelihoods, in some instances having to do with climate change, having to do with injustices, some of which are local, others are global. There are forms of marginalization that exist in our societies. There are still people who are said to be of slave ascendants or because of the work that they are doing. They are being discriminated, against in big ways. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, including here in West Africa, right? And some of those issues are so much into the way people live now that they don't even, they are not even at the center of our attention, right? And yet it's a problem. Some of the explanations of the fighting going on in Mali is that part of the problem is that people who have been considered as slaves are now picking up arms and leading rebel movements, because in the Salafist ideology, the notion of being slave, if you are a Muslim, doesn't make sense today. Okay, so the point I'm making here is, we should have a broader view and a contextualized view of issues of peace and security if we want lasting solutions and sustainable solutions to that problem. But it's all within our reach, and I'll end up by quoting Nelson Mandela, who said, "It is in our hands." Right? It is in our hands. It is in the hands of the youth, and I think it is something that people here have understood, because from what I've heard in the conversations, you're already on the right path. And I would just say thank you for your contributions. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to the colleagues who have been, operating at various levels, and the media who have been here. But my colleagues at TrustAfrica, Abda and Fakumba, who are involved, working with Letty and Rubiat and all the team over the last couple of weeks. It's been a pleasure and a great honor to have had the opportunity to be part of this gathering. We certainly at TrustAfrica will continue following. We've said that we are going to strengthen the relationship with IPSS and with the Tana Forum, and I'm very also happy to have gotten to meet my brother, the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, and this is somebody to value. It's a privilege having somebody like him who's got the experience he has to be on the board of the Tana Forum and to be present in gatherings like this one. So thanks again, and all the best.